The modern NFL runs on a brutal truth. Budget efficiency wins championships, and overpaying for struggling talent ruins franchises. While Deshaun Watson struggles with basic pocket presence and quick processing, Shedeur Sanders offers Cleveland the ultimate cheat code: elite processing speed on a low-cost rookie deal that lets the team build a powerhouse roster around him. Cleveland's front office is in full panic mode because they know the better player is on the bench and hiding him is getting harder every week. When the Cleveland Browns handed Deshaun Watson a fully guaranteed $230 million contract, they believed they were buying a permanent solution to a decades-long quarterback crisis. It was an aggressive move designed to signal to the rest of the league that Cleveland was done playing it safe and ready to push all their chips to the middle of the table. But the reality of guaranteed money in professional football is that it strips away flexibility, creating an environment where executive pride often takes precedence over on-field reality. When a player commands a salary of that magnitude, every decision made by the organization, from offensive scheme adjustments to public messaging, becomes an exercise in protecting that massive financial commitment. Yet football has an unforgiving way of exposing financial gambles. Enter Shedeur Sanders, a rookie whose arrival was meant to simply add depth and developmental potential to the roster. Instead, from the moment he stepped onto the practice field, the dynamic within the organization fundamentally shifted. Sanders cost a tiny fraction of Watson's contract, just over $4 million spread across 4 years, creating a financial contrast so stark that it makes every rep taken during practice feel loaded with unspoken tension. On paper, it is a backup competing with an established starter. In reality, it is a collision between an unsustainable financial burden and an explosive, affordable alternative. The psychological weight of this dynamic is rooted in a classic economic trap: the sunk cost fallacy. In theory, rational decision-makers should evaluate present options based solely on future performance rather than past expenditures. In the high-stakes environment of the NFL, however, general managers and head coaches are human beings who operate under constant public scrutiny. Admitting that a $250 million investment is failing is not just a tactical adjustment, it is a potentially career-ending confession for the executives who authorize the check. The front office desperately wants Watson to succeed because his success validates their vision and secures their jobs. While the front office wrestles with financial optics, the locker room operates on a completely different set of incentives. Players do not care about contract structures, salary caps, or executive reputations. Their careers are short, their health is constantly on the line, and their personal success depends almost entirely on winning games right now. A veteran wide receiver whose next contract hinges on hitting statistical incentives cannot afford to care that the starting quarterback earns $60 million a year if that quarterback cannot consistently deliver the ball on time. The moment the locker room perceives that a younger, cheaper option gives them a better chance to succeed, the internal authority of the high-priced veteran begins to erode. This unspoken divide manifests in subtle ways long before it ever bursts out into open media speculation. You see it in the tempo of practice, the energy in the huddle, and the unspoken language between players during film sessions. When Sanders operates the offense, there is an unmistakable rhythm that comes from a player operating with nothing to lose and everything to prove. His release is crisp, his decision-making is decisive, and his commanding presence demands accountability from everyone on the field. It creates a stark contrast to a veteran who appears to be carrying the full emotional and psychological weight of his astronomical contract into every dropback. For Cleveland, the narrative has subtly transformed from a hopeful story about recovery to an anxious race against time. For months, the public line was focused on patience, scheme fit, and waiting for Watson to regain the form that made him a superstar earlier in his career. But patience is a luxury that vanishes the moment a viable alternative demonstrates competence. The conversation is no longer about whether the expensive starter can eventually return to his peak. It is about how long the front office can reasonably justify keeping a dynamic, high-potential rookie on the bench before the tension inside the building becomes completely unmanageable. Every pass Sanders completes during team drills adds another layer of pressure onto a coaching staff trying to manage two entirely different realities. On one side, they must honor the organizational hierarchy dictated by the front office and the salary cap. On the other side, they are responsible for putting the most effective unit on the field every single Sunday. Hiding that disparity becomes nearly impossible when the film consistently tells a story that contradicts the payroll. As the season approaches, Cleveland finds itself trapped in a narrative force field of its own making. The media attention grows more intense with every practice session, and every throw made by both quarterbacks is dissected by analysts, fans, and rival scouts. The Browns' front office built a structure designed around an expensive cornerstone, but they inadvertently introduced a spark that threatens to dismantle the entire foundation. The financial trap has been set, the locker room is quietly observing, and the inevitable shift in power is already underway. When you break down the game film, the contrast between Deshaun Watson and Shedeur Sanders ceases to be an abstract financial debate.
On first down, they go play action. Watson
down-by-down
inadvertently got his feet
field. Modern NFL defense is defined by speed, disguised coverages, and relentless pass rush concepts designed to force quarterbacks into quick, decisive processing. In this environment, a fraction of a second in release time
makes the completion nonetheless. What a recovery by Watson.
The difference between a chunk
Welcome
play
to the
downfield
NFL,
and a
Rook.
devastating sack. When watching both quarterbacks process the same offensive concepts against similar defensive fronts, the disparity in their mechanical efficiency and mental pacing becomes impossible to ignore. Watson's game has historically relied on athletic off-script
Pierre strong onto the field. Watson
beyond the structured
somehow escapes initially. Third down pass is caught. This will be a first
down reps into highlight reel moments. However, as injuries and accumulated hits have taken their toll, that play style has become increasingly difficult to sustain in a league where pass rushers are faster and more disciplined than ever. On tape,
you need
Watson
to be
frequently
thinking,
displays a troubling
believing,
tendency
and
to
living
hold on
that
to
you
the
are the
ball
best player on the field,
timing of the
regardless of the...
Instead of trusting the structure of the play and delivering the ball on rhythm to the primary or secondary read, he often hitches in the pocket, hesitates as windows open and close, and invites pressure that his line was not designed to absorb. This pocket navigation struggle creates a cascading
on second
effect
and 9, he delivers a strike. That's
forcing
Cooper
receivers to improvise secondary routes and placing immense strain on offensive tackles who are asked to block for 4 or 5 seconds at a time. Sanders, by contrast, operates with an innate sense of timing and mechanical discipline that mirrors the modern ideal of pocket passing. His
We
game
crossed
is
the
built
10-minute
on
mark
pre-snap
before
diagnostic
halftime.
skills,
Watson on first
spatial
down, throwing
awareness,
towards the
and a
end
fast
zone.
impact
Wide.
release that gets the ball out of his hands before the pass rush can establish leverage. When Sanders takes his drop, there is very little wasted motion. His feet are synchronized with his eyes, allowing him to step into throws with balance and power even when the pocket is compressing around him.
For the touchdown!
You see him consistently
Tennessee has made some
identifying
mistakes,
middle
but
of
this is
the
a tough
field
defense. They're
safety
working
rotations before the snap, enabling him to deliver the ball to the soft spots in zone coverage right at the apex of the receiver's route. This natural processing speed keeps the offense ahead of the chains, eliminates negative plays, and establishes a predictable, rhythmic tempo
Watson
that
on
keeps
second and
defensive
9,
coordinators
put some
off
air under
balance.
it, it's caught!
This
Cooper
fundamental
breaking
difference
free!
in play style directly impacts how an offensive coordinator can call a game. When a quarterback consistently operates on rhythm, the play caller can open up the entire playbook, utilizing quick game concepts, run-pass options, and delayed play-action shots with confidence.
And it looks like the officials are going to mark him out of bounds right after
They've been able to control the game.
Conversely, when a quarterback struggles with pocket presence and holding the ball, the play calling necessarily becomes conservative, limited by the fear of costly sacks, fumble turnover risks, and third and long situations. Sanders provides the offense with structural predictability.
Jerome Ford split out top of your picture. Watson
throwing
far side. It's
the designed parameters of the system. Beyond the tactical realities of mechanics and processing, the on-field contrast introduces a massive macroeconomic advantage that defines contemporary NFL roster construction. The cost efficiency factor. The modern NFL salary cap is a zero-sum game where every dollar allocated to one position group is a dollar taken away from another. Committing over $50 million annually to a single position, particularly one that is underperforming, severely limits a franchise's ability to retain elite talent
Field
at
goal
premium
from right
spots
here.
like edge rusher,
Watson
defensive tackle,
over the
and
middle, it's
cornerback.
caught.
It
First
forces
down,
a front
Cleveland.
office to
Right
rely
now,
on
Mike
cheap
Vrabel
depth, make painful cap cut sacrifices, and operate with zero margin for error during free agency and draft weekend, when a team secures a high-ceiling quarterback on a rookie contract, it effectively unlocks a competitive cheat code that reshapes the entire organizational
defense to
strategy.
step up here and
Sanders'
do not let
modest
them get to the end zone.
allows the
Elijah
front
Moore
office
was
to
lined up in the
reallocate
back.
tens of millions of dollars back into building a dominant supporting cast around him, instead of asking a quarterback to carry a depleted, budget-strapped roster on his back. A team with a rookie contract quarterback can surround him with a top-tier offensive line,
Watson
a
the
deep
fake,
rotation of
taking on
dynamic wide
tacklers.
receivers, and an elite, suffocating defense.
On
The rookie
2nd and
quarterback
12.
does not need to play like a superhero every single week, because the overall strength and depth of the roster compensates for his natural learning curve. This financial dynamic creates a profound dilemma for Cleveland's leadership. The front office is currently attempting
Watson,
to build a
all day to
championship
throw,
contender
delivers a strike.
around a quarterback
Cooper.
contract that
Really credit
drains
the
an
entire
enormous
defense. They
percentage
came to
of the
play.
team's total salary cap, while simultaneously watching a rookie demonstrate that he can run the exact same offense at a fraction of the price. The contrast is not just about who throws a better spiral on a Sunday afternoon. It is about the entire strategic blueprint.
Play action
of the
from
franchise.
Watson's going to take a
Sanders
shot.
represents
Cooper,
financial freedom,
wide
roster
open.
depth, and long-term sustainability, while Watson's contract represents a restrictive financial ceiling that demands perfection from a player who is currently struggling to provide stability. Furthermore, the cost-efficiency factor extends beyond pure cap numbers and enters the realm of
Touchdown!
organizational energy and marketability. A young, cheap, high-ceiling
Watson!
quarterback energizes a fan base and instills a sense of forward momentum throughout an entire organization. Fans and analysts are willing to celebrate incremental growth and forgive rookie mistakes when they know the franchise possesses the financial
Cooper!
flexibility to build
It's
for the
2-on-1.
future. With an astronomical
And they
contract,
just
however, every minor mistake is magnified through the lens of payroll expectation. The crowd becomes impatient, the local media turns hypercritical, and the pressure inside the stadium becomes palpable the moment an offensive drive stalls. As
Stand
these
there
two
as if
realities
somebody
clash
else
on
is
the
going to
field,
cover
the
Amari
narrative
Cooper
shift
down the
becomes
field.
unstoppable. The tape does not lie, and neither does the math of the salary cap. Every clean, decisive throw Sanders delivers from a secure pocket serves as a visual reminder of what the offense could look like, and every dollar saved on his contract serves as a reminder of what the roster could become. Cleveland is watching two entirely different philosophies play out in real time, and as the on-field contrast grows wider, the argument for sticking with the status quo becomes harder to defend with each passing week. Inside the quiet confines of an NFL building, momentum rarely shifts in a single dramatic explosion. It leaks through the cracks of daily routine. Long before the general public senses a quarterback controversy, the players inside the locker room have already reached a consensus. They see every rep, hear every call in the huddle, and feel the distinct difference in energy depending on who is taking the snap. In Cleveland, that quiet shift in player loyalty is already underway, creating an invisible wedge between the players on the field and the executives sitting in the high-altitude luxury suites. A locker room is a meritocracy by necessity. Veteran players whose bodies are battered by years of brutal collisions do not hold allegiances to contract size or corporate public relations strategy. They align themselves with competence and leadership. When wide receivers run summer routes, their body language tells a story that no press conference can cover up. With Sanders at the helm, there is an extra gear of urgency. Wideouts burst out of their breaks with absolute certainty because they know the ball will meet them precisely at the target depth. The offensive line sets their anchor with renewed belief, knowing they do not have to hold their blocks through endless chaotic scrambles. When a backup quarterback commands the huddle with authority, crisp communication, and infectious confidence, veterans notice, and their trust quietly migrates toward the player who makes their jobs easier. This subtle realignment puts the coaching staff in an agonizing position. Head coach Todd Monken and his assistants live in the intermediate zone between the front office's high-stakes financial commitments and the locker room's desperate desire to win now. A coaching staff cannot fake belief in a starting quarterback without losing the respect of the 53 men wearing pads. If the tape clearly shows that the offense flows smoother, faster, and more efficiently under Sanders, every week Monken continues to start Watson risks eroding his authority in the room. Coaches begin to hear the quiet whispers in the hallways, see the subtle shakes of the head during film review, and feel the growing friction between what they are instructed to do and what they know is right for the football team. Meanwhile, outside the team facility, the national media machine feeds continuously on the drama, amplifying the internal tension into an inescapable firestorm. Modern sports media thrives on high-stakes organizational conflict, and a $250 million quarterback getting pushed by a famous high-profile rookie is the ultimate content engine. Morning debate shows dissect every incomplete pass, social media users clip and analyze every practice throw, and local beat writers ask increasingly uncomfortable questions at every afternoon press briefing. What begins as a quiet internal headache quickly transforms into a relentless nationwide referendum on organizational competence. General Manager Andrew Berry and the front office find themselves under a microscope that gets hotter with every passing news cycle. Every analyst on television is pointing out the stark contrast between Watson's sluggish processing and Sanders' effortless rhythm, framing the situation not just as a quarterback decision, but as a test of executive courage. The media narrative machine creates a psychological pressure chamber where every decision is scrutinized through the lens of ego versus accountability. Is the front office stubborn enough to ride a collapsing $230 million investment into disaster just to avoid admitting a mistake, or will they have the conviction to pull the plug and embrace the future? This constant barrage of external commentary inevitably leaks back into the facility, making it impossible for the organization to isolate its players from the noise. Fans in the stadium begin to grow restive at the first sign of an offensive stall, their frustration primed by weeks of national commentary pointing out that a better, cheaper option is sitting right there on the sideline. The home crowd's patience, already paper-thin after years of quarterback instability, wears down to nothing. A single underthrown pass or a foolish sack taken by the expensive veteran invites a chorus of boos that reverberates directly into the luxury boxes where the front office sits. As the pressure escalates from both inside the locker room and outside the stadium walls, the margin for error for the coaching staff and front office shrinks to zero. Every decision becomes fraught with political landmines. Choosing to stick with Watson looks like corporate stubbornness and fear of executive embarrassment, while benching him feels like a historic surrender that permanently cements the $230 million contract as one of the worst financial blunders in sports history. The national media machine does not allow for nuance or slow transitions. It demands blood, accountability, and immediate results. What makes the national narrative so dangerous for Cleveland is that it strips away all management excuses. The public understands the salary cap, recognizes the value of a high-ceiling quarterback on a rookie deal, and can clearly see when a team is being held hostage by its own financial pride. The pressure on Monken and Berry ceases to be merely tactical. It becomes existential. They are forced to confront the reality that protecting an executive mistake might cost them their own careers, because team owners rarely tolerate both a losing record and a mutinous locker room. The media machine and the locker room dynamic ultimately join forces to form a single, unstoppable wave. When veteran players subtly echo media criticisms in off-the-record conversations, and national commentators highlight the exact same execution flaws that the coaching staff sees every morning in the film room, the wall of organizational denial crumbles. Cleveland's front office can try to control the narrative through polished press releases and vague statements about patience and process, but they cannot control the reality on the ground. The panic in the front office is no longer a secret. The media pressure is at an all-time high, and the reckoning inside the building is reaching its boiling point. Every high-stakes saga in professional sports eventually hits an inflection point where theories give way to unyielding reality. For Cleveland, that timeline is not a distant concern. It is structured around specific calendar milestones where the pressure to abandon past mistakes becomes overwhelming. Throughout the season, specific triggers will force the front office to choose between financial pride and operational reality. The first critical juncture arrives in the late stages of the preseason, when the illusion of a standard backup role is tested during live exhibition reps. If Sanders consistently leads crisp touchdown drives against starting-caliber defensive packages, while Watson struggles with basic execution, the narrative hardens before Week 1 even kicks off. As the regular season begins, the margin for error narrows to a razor-thin edge. Consider the worst-case scenario that every Cleveland executive secretly dreads: an early-season division matchup where Watson throws a costly third-quarter interception or takes a disastrous sack that stalls a potential game-winning drive. In that exact moment, the stadium atmosphere ceases to be supportive. The chorus of dissatisfaction from 60,000 fans in attendance, combined with millions watching nationally, turns every subsequent possession into an unbearable high-wire act. Even a minor physical tweak or lingering shoulder fatigue, the kind of routine injury a starter normally plays through, becomes an immediate structural trigger. The coaching staff is handed a natural face-saving excuse to insert Sanders under the guise of injury management, knowing full well that if the rookie shines, there is no turning back. Should the organization manage to resist the external noise through September, the trade deadline and mid-season bye week represent the ultimate structural deadlines. The bye week in particular is the classic NFL reset window where coaching staffs fundamentally reevaluate their scheme and depth chart without the daily pressure of game preparation, spending an entire week staring at self-scout film that clearly demonstrates a higher offensive ceiling under Sanders makes continuing with the status quo feel like gross negligence. By mid-season, the locker room's patience is completely exhausted, and the front office faces an inescapable choice: switch to the dynamic rookie on his team-friendly deal and preserve the locker room's belief, or stubbornly stick with a $250 million contract and risk sinking the entire season.